In many ways, it's all led up to this moment. 10 years and then some of the Safer Cars for India program, and we have a voluntary test from Maruti Suzuki. Let's talk about that and the impact, pun intended, of what that means with Alejandro Furas, who needs no introduction with our audience. Nice to see you, always.
Nice to see you again.
And yes, it's a big deal. This is a big deal. This is a big day.
It's the most important car we ever tested probably in the program so far. It's a major change from the manufacturer in two ways. Comes a voluntary test, and the second and probably the most important is how they shifted their vision into what should come as a standard in terms of safety. And for us, it's a major improvement into the manufacturer's view, but also I think it's a major improvement for the consumers in India. This car is one of the best-selling cars, shared with another model as well, and having it coming with the standard ESC, standard 6 airbags, and a good performance, because actually we've seen pretty good results in the protection. I think it's an incredible progress. Yeah.
And as you said, it kind of shares a lot of its architecture and its equipment with the Swift, which is of course another huge seller. So while we're not going to assume it's the same result, it bodes well. The point you make about why this becomes so important for the Indian consumer. Now, from Maruti Suzuki's perspective, this is an updated version of a platform that's been around for a while. This is a model or a model line that we have tested before here, and we've seen pretty disastrous results. It's also a platform and a model line that's been made, in Japan or in Hungary in the past.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Indian-made car now steps up in such a huge way, that has implications on the car going to other markets as well, like Latin America.
We hope so. We hope that
Well, actually, yeah, we have to hope so.
We hope so. I mean, we hope that when these cars are coming to other emerging markets where regulations are softer than in India, that the safety equipment and the standard equipment and performance will stay as it is. This is actually what we are hoping for. Otherwise, we're gonna be seeing a turn in events in the history, because in the past it was completely different. When we started Safer Cars for India, Latin America had a much more stringent safety requirements. And now it happens that it's India. They're having the higher standards and higher requirements than other emerging markets, probably leading in terms of the emerging markets world. And from our perspective, what we hope from the manufacturer to happen is that they keep the standardized baseline for this car for all the markets where they export the vehicle.
And it's other cars too. I mean, it shouldn't just be about this model.
Yes.
So everything from here on in a way is the hope.
Like a company policy, more like a company policy that many other manufacturers are applying as well, is that this is going to be our baseline. We're not going to go below this. This is a safety equipment, the basic safety equipment. That's standard. That's what you're going to get.
And of course, that's a question we will be asking Maruti. Now, the 6 airbags becoming standard on the Swift, when that happened a few months ago, I think that was the first sort of signal to us that this change is coming. The change in the car itself, I will talk about in just a second, but tell me, the change in the attitude, the behavior pattern from this company, you've been dealing with them for more than a decade now, even the Indian operation. How encouraging is that, the change in that attitude shift?
For us, it's very encouraging towards the future. But in the other way, it also shows that there is a perception from the car manufacturer towards the consumer that it's very important. Of course, like Global NCAP, we are testing for the consumer. We are consumer testing, but let's understand that this is a change towards how they see the need from the consumer side. And this is dramatic. I'm not saying that they didn't consider that in the past. We're not saying that. We're saying is that they shifted, they have more consideration of what's coming out from the input of the consumers. So this shows once again consumer information and proper consumer information at the right time of the buying or purchasing a car. That can make a change beyond regulations. And this is probably the best result we can summarize, or the best thing how we can summarize all this, is how the consumer force, consumer power, thanks to media like you promoting this, opening the information for everyone, making transparent information, and giving it on the right time when you're buying a car, and explaining people why this is important. Then you can cause these changes in the manufacturer, which is selling the most. I mean, they are having most of the times more than 50% of the volume in the car market. So this is very significant.
It's huge, yeah. Now, let's talk about the car. The fact that this is also a voluntary test. And we've had lots of Maruti Suzukis being crash tested at this facility, all involuntary. This is a big deal, the fact that they wanted to do this. Also at a time when the protocol has become more stringent. I mean, you don't have just the frontal test anymore. You don't have just the dual airbag requirement anymore, especially if you want to go for 4 or 5 stars. So talk us through that. What all has this car undergone?
Well, the car has been tested in frontal test, side impacts, side pole impacts, electronic stability control, and also the pedestrian protection. So it's pretty much what we understand should be the basics on what we should be testing.
And all this needs to be standard.
Yes,
on the
exactly,
car.
exactly. In order to achieve the top star ratings. And in all of them that we have seen so far, they showed good performances and solid, robust performances. It's not just on the edge, but they show robustness in what they do, and robustness from the engineering perspective and the performance perspective, both of them. So this is something that pleases very much at this level.
And the platform that I was referring to earlier, in the context of Maruti Suzuki, that becomes possibly a little bit more meaningful because we're seeing a wide variety of different body styles and segments kind of coming off of what's basically the same hard tech platform. So would you think that the new generation of vehicles that we've been seeing, a lot of this stuff is now getting baked in?
I tend to think...
hope again?
It's not just a hope. I tend to think from what we have seen in the market and how they are developing the new generations on the replacement on the new models, that it's becoming some kind of a coincidence that they are applying this policy of certain safety equipment as a standard. There's no reason for us to think that they're going to go in a different way. Once this car is published and everyone knows the star rating, everyone knows what they can do, I think there will be pressure from the consumer side and they will not be able to step down from that. And that's also very important. So that to keep the pressure on manufacturer, I think that there's a policy change here from the manufacturer perspective that is here to stay for at least for the next years. And we hope to stay, for the future as well.
Huge volumes, as you said, on a model like the Dzire, also its twin, the Swift. We do have cars that sell at a lower price point that have a more sort of entry sort of a version, a role that they play in the market. What's your hope now in terms of what sort of attention shifts to even some of those cars? They may become more and more irrelevant with more regulations coming in, but they do still have a lot of volume. So cars like the Alto or the Celerio, what would you like to see happen there?
I would like to see the same strategy they have in the Dzire, to have it replicated in the other models as well, in terms of not just the equipment, but also in the performance. And we will hope to see the same attitude from the company, that just they improve the car, they bring the new model into the markets, and actually we can test them as a voluntary test. We can test it under Global NCAP standards and see how the car performs. It's logical that the change, once we see this level of vehicle, for the cheaper vehicles, it comes probably a little bit later in time. That's reasonable to think about. But in my opinion, if we keep the pressure from the consumer side onto the manufacturer, it will be very challenging for them to say we won't do it. Because what we are doing is democratizing vehicle safety. That's what we've been working in the last 10 years. And this is a message from democratizing, making for any vehicle you buy, the cheapest and the most popular cars to have such a safety equipment as a standard. And this is actually a response to what Suzuki Maruti was doing for years, selling affordable cars for people, massive models. I think this should be the communication from their side to the consumers as well.
The magnitude of this moment is what gets me to smile every few minutes, because of course a lot of us have been sort of fighting for exactly this to happen. Maruti Suzuki doing this in the market, or doing anything in our market, always has a massive ripple effect. So the hope is that, of course, this translates to quicker action from the other brands as well. We've seen some action already, but quick sort of reference point where sometimes the media, of course, tends to misreport or underreport, but you get caught up in certain catchphrases. 6 airbags seems to be this cool new thing now. It's like this shiny, I must have it kind of thing. What else needs to happen for those 6 airbags to really matter?
You have the 6 airbags and you have ESC, but we have to test that they perform well and they do what they have to do. And that's why we do.
And the structure still has to be good.
And the structure is actually the baseline for all that. So in order to know how all these systems work together, we need to test the car. It's the only way to find out how the systems work with each other and how they perform or how they protect the people inside and outside. The only way to find that out is testing it beyond regulations. We have cars that meet regulations and they are legal. In India, we bought them and we tested them, and they don't perform according to our higher star ratings. Star ratings and regulations, they need to coexist in the market. It's not one or the other. They need to coexist. And the star ratings are giving the information to the consumer what's beyond regulation, which car is protecting better than the other one. That's what we're doing. It is reasonable to think that from the perspective of the popular consumer, they will expect from the cheaper cars, from the cheaper models from the brands, to keep having this safety performance. It's reasonable to think about that. And from our side, we'll keep putting the pressure also on those cars, because those popular models, the cheaper models, is the ones when you have to put more efforts and bring them to higher safety performances.
I mean, their sales continue to decline year after year, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
they've gone away yet.
Yeah.
All right, so one last thing. There has been so much work that I know that you have done. Global NCAP has put in so much time, effort, energy, even money into getting this program to this point, really. What's Global NCAP's role now when it comes to what happens from here ahead?
Two things. First, voluntary testing, we're not going to stop that. Any manufacturer wants to, voluntary testing.
And a lot of them are coming to you still.
Yeah, correct. And also we have launched the Safer Choice Award, which is let's say an extra on top of the voluntary testing, and this is going to keep happening. I think it's time for the Bharat NCAP to have their own action into the market to see how they perform. We're giving the floor to Bharat NCAP, and it's for the consumers to keep the pressure. It's for the consumers to keep the pressure on what Global NCAP is doing, and it's for them to keep the pressure, or the consumers to keep the pressure. The manufacturers keep coming to us in new vehicles and new models as a voluntary test, being tested again. Any updates? We're going to be updating the protocols as well, so this is not going to be static for a long time. So we're going to show some, let's say, progress and improvements and more requirements, and this is for the market to keep the pressure on the manufacturers to be volunteering for the test. In terms of the Safer Choice, we would like to see more manufacturers applying to that.
Yeah.
That's a high challenge, we also know, but the Indian market is moving way faster than people think into that levels, because the Safer Choice is focusing on assisting driving, on ADAS technologies, and the Indian manufacturers are really developing very, very fast into that field, because we know it's a necessary part of the vehicle safety. And I'm quite optimistic we're going to get more and more cars with those systems equipped, and probably more cars tested under the Safer Choice.
And there's an assumption or a natural tendency to almost take it for granted now when you hear about Mahindra winning Safer Choice or Tata winning it. But I think the notional impact of having a Suzuki or a Hyundai or a Kia or any Honda, any other manufacturer also getting to that level would have, again, a massive effect on our consumer.
Absolutely. It's going to set a new standard for cars which are not probably that expensive in a certain price range. More popular cars. So the more popular they get and the safer choice they get is going to have a major impact into the markets.
Yeah, I'm very happy to always declare my vested interest in wanting to see all of this happen. I know you and I share that vested interest, but I do want to say that every time we do stories like this, or we speak with you, or we cover this, we get a massive amount of feedback. And so on behalf of everyone, I think I'm going to say thank you. Thank you that we have this moment today, and keep doing the work you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the support.